some questions and short contributions. But first of all, if I ask you to throw your hands together for John McInally, please.
Well, thank you very much. Just want to check, can you hear me okay at the back? Yeah, brilliant, okay. It's a real pleasure to be in Dundee, and I want to speak today about the YES campaign because I don't think it is an accident that the demand for Scottish independence has come up at this time. We're in a situation in Scotland, the rest of the UK and worldwide incidentally, where we have austerity. Austerity is really just a fancy word for an unremitting class war carried out by the elite, by the bankers, against the 99% in society. And while they make profits, for us it's low pay. Income, for example, for working people is the same in 2014 as it was in 2003. It's 0-hour contracts. It's food banks in the sixth richest country in the world. And we also see what can only be described, and I make no apologies for using this language, a hate campaign conducted against the unemployed, the disabled and low-paid workers. We now have this phrase, the undeserving poor or the deserving poor, which is intended to divide people one from the other. And we're watching a situation where the National Health Service and the welfare state that our forefathers and foremothers won over generations of struggle is being dismantled in front of our eyes. And all of this, on the basis of a crisis caused by the bankers, we are seeing the biggest transfer of wealth and power from working people to the bankers and to the elite. But not everybody's having a bad time. E.ON, the energy company, has just announced a while back 26% rise in profits on the basis of a 9% rise in prices. And the 5 richest people in this country, in the UK, have more personal wealth than the 20% poorest. And it's got to be something that would break the heart of any decent human being when we have to say to our children and our grandchildren, it's more likely that you're going to have a far harder life than people of my generation. And I think that's the context in which this debate on independence is taking place, because I think there are 2 factors that's led to an upsurge in the support for YES. The first is the crisis in political representation. And again, that's just a fancy way of saying in Parliament there is nobody speaking out for us because the Labour Party, and all the evidence is there, has abandoned working class people. We have a situation as well, many of the trade union leaders are not prepared to fight against austerity. A couple of years ago in Dundee, as well as in Bristol where I live, and in every city in this country, we saw 2 million workers take action to defend their pensions. But that potential force was then sold out without any consultation with those workers. And that, in my opinion, was a green light to really go ahead with this attack in terms of austerity. So from that point of view, it is these issues that are making people ask what kind of alternative do we need. And you know, as a trade unionist, as somebody who goes and organises amongst workers, I think it is a scandal, and future generations are going to ask this question. Why is it when we're watching the full-scale privatisation in the National Health Service, we have not seen one day of generalised strike action to stop them? That is a failure of leadership. That is a failure of leadership, and it is unacceptable. And everybody knows, the dogs in the street can tell you, that the best way to defeat austerity is for joint coordinated action across the public sector, and where in the private sector we can deliver it. But it's a failure of leadership. Some unions like mine demand that, others turn a blind eye. But I want to start off really on the question of the yes vote, be defining what it's not about. It is not about nationalism. What it's about is about an alternative, fighting for an alternative to austerity. I also believe it's about democracy. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Because I think people are crying out for some measure of control in their lives when they see the big companies and the political elite telling them, you're powerless, there's nothing you can do, we're going to strip you of all your rights and your wages, and you better just sit there and do nothing. Well, that is why I believe people are looking for some kind of alternative. Now, as somebody who lives in England, I have to say that my first concern in this debate is not asking what is best for my country. The first concern is what is best for my class. And that is why trade unionists and socialists must take part in this debate. And I want to say, in terms of the vision put forward by the SNP and the YES campaign, we have to say that while we support YES, while we support the idea of a fairer society, it would be absolutely wrong not to point out the contradictions and the failings in the vision that they're setting forward. Because I'll tell you why I say that. I don't think it's possible to build a fairer society on the basis of low taxation. I don't believe it's possible to build a fairer society when Scotland would be tied to the Bank of England and tied to the same spending plans or similar spending plans as we have at the present time. There are plenty of progressive elements in the white paper, but it does give some kind of vision of an alternative, and from that point of view, that is a good thing. But we cannot just stand back and take an uncritical approach, because that would be telling lies to working class people. But having said that, we turn to the No campaign. And if you want to sum up what the No campaign is about, it's in that disgraceful phrase of John Lamont's, we must have an end to the something for nothing culture. Now let me tell you what that means. That means that they're going to go on with austerity. That means they say that there's no alternative, that they're going to go on with the race to the bottom. So what we have from the No campaign is really saying there's not going to be any change. What is going to happen is you're going to have to take it, they're going to have to sit back and accept it. Let me make this point to you. Rather than say they're going to advocate against austerity, rather than putting forward policies that are going to help working people, they would rather take the chance of losing Scotland to the UK in this particular debate, and that is how far they have went. But what is also going on is what is called Project Fear. Some of it's funny, whether it's Rory Stewart saying they should hold hands across Hadrian's Wall to show how much they love the Scottish people, and some of it is very sinister when we've got George Robertson talking about dark forces. I'll give you a warning here tonight. As we get closer to that vote, they're going to lie to you. They're going to tell you, if you vote yes, the world is going to fall around your ears. Don't believe them. They're saying that because they are scared of the consequences of a yes vote, not for you, but for them. So that's why we say that is why we would say there's a qualitative difference, even with the imperfections in the yes case put forward as it is. But that is why socialists and trade unionists and working people must involve themselves in this debate. We can't just be bystanders and leave it to the politicians. Because I see my job as a trade unionist and as a socialist to voice the aspirations and the grievances of the people I represent, my members and my class. And that means in the Scottish independence debate, we don't just listen to what the politicians are telling us, we have to put forward our own demands. And let me tell you what I think those demands look like. An end to low pay, an end to pay freezes, an end to privatisation. We need tax justice. Tax justice is a simple idea. I pay my taxes, you pay yours, so the rich should pay theirs. We should have a proper welfare state and an NHS and civil liberties. And what we also need is trade union rights, because I'll tell you this, you cannot build a more fair and equal society, you can't build a democratic society based on the most repressive trade union laws in the Western world. And in order to achieve the promises in the white paper, which are modest really in comparison to what is what we actually need. We actually need socialist policies. And I'll tell you this, what we need more than anything else is an extension of public ownership. We need the renationalisation of the utilities, the gas and electricity. And we'll never control our own destinies until we nationalise the banks. Because they, people who run them now, have proved they're not capable. Because the people who run them now have proved that they are not capable of running them in our interests. So workers, working people, in my opinion, have got a vested interest in, voting yes. And do we lessen the chances of winning a yes vote by pointing out the problems and what the SNP and others are saying? No, I don't believe that. I believe it actually strengthens our case. Because the day after independence, if we win that vote, the day after independence, the Bank of England and the international bankers will come to the new government in Scotland and they will say, OK, you've had your fun, now these are the rules. And if we are not prepared to build a mass movement in order to build a better country, then they will prevail. So it can't just be left to the politicians. We have to make sure that we're involving ourselves in that particular venture. So what we need to do is let us use the power, the solidarity that we have as working people. So it's yes, we have to vote yes in the referendum, but we need to implement the types of policies that's going to create a better society. And it might be unfashionable in some parts of the Labour movement to say this, but I unashamedly say what we need is socialist policies to deliver for our class the way the Tories tried to deliver for their class. So in conclusion, and I'm looking forward as much to Tommy speaking as you are. I first met Tommy over 30 years ago, but I just want to finish on this point. The tasks that are in front of us are this. We have to build a mass movement against austerity. And that means making demands on those union leaders who are not prepared to fight. It means involving yourself in your union, involving yourself in your communities, and raise your voice. Because what those in top try to tell us, they try to tell us you don't have a voice, you don't have any power. That is why they want you to stay silent. So we have to build that mass movement in order to get the policies that we need. But what we also need is effective political representation. Nobody speaks for us in Parliament, and we have to make sure that we are building effective political representation and a party, a new workers' party that will represent us in the same way the Tories and incidentally Labour represent big business. And I want to make this point in conclusion. As somebody who lives in England, some people in England say to me, don't leave us, you'll leave us with the Tories. But there's more people who are beginning to understand that if we are capable in Scotland, if you are capable in Scotland of building some kind of alternative, showing that it's possible to build a fairer and more equal society, I believe that will be a beacon to workers in England, to Wales and Northern Ireland. So I believe if we want to talk about solidarity amongst working people, the solidarity of trying to build that alternative is the best example we can give. Solidarity and unity and building a society where we put people before profit, that is really what's at stake in this referendum. And that is why I will do everything I can whenever I'm here in this country to make sure that we win. We need a society that delivers for us, a socialist society. Let's make a yes vote part of that particular battle, and if we do that, we will prevail.